What's up, everyone? This is the Minister of Beauty, and thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Being Beautifully Honest podcast. Now, this is not a beautiful story, so I'm not even going to lie to you guys, but this is something that's been in the news for a little over a week now since I have decided to record an episode about the story because I was on the fence about it. I had a lot of thoughts and feelings about it, and I was just trying to decide, if I was going to do a podcast about this story. But because this is the Being Beautifully Honest podcast, and I'm not coming from an ugly place, I'm just coming from a place of pure visuals and what I see based on what has been reported. I'm not judging those who are involved, but just want to share my thoughts and get your thoughts as well regarding the story. And this is regarding former mayor of Tallahassee, Florida, Andrew Gillum. Now, he was a contender for governor for the state of Florida, and he even had the backing of people like former President Barack Obama, I believe possibly Oprah Winfrey. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that one. But he had a lot of people that were behind him, and he was very, I hate to say this phrase because it's one that you hear a lot about educated African American people, but very well spoken. Okay, I put it out there. He was, someone that got a lot of good marks in the debates that he was having against the Republican nominee at the time, who is now the current governor of Florida because he lost that race. But yeah, he had a lot of support, and a lot of people were believing that he could win. And when the race happened and he lost, that was one of the races that a lot of people who were behind him and that were really believing that there could be this wave of maybe places that were not normally known to be Democratic wins or hopefuls, that it could actually happen, which was at the time the big ones that were really being focused on were Florida and Georgia, because there was the one black woman who was running for governor for the state of Georgia, and she also lost her race as well. But she has nothing to do with this story, so I'm not going to get off on that tangent, but I just wanted to just kind of talk about that a little bit. But let's just talk about this story. I'm going to read the article, and the article that I'm reading is from USA Today, so I'm actually going to have a link to that in the description or in the podcast notes wherever you're listening to this episode, and then I'm going to just share my thoughts on this story. Okay, so this is from USA Today in Tallahassee, Florida. Andrew Gillum, Tallahassee's telegenic former mayor and the 2018 Democratic nominee for Florida governor, was involved in a meth overdose incident early Friday morning in a Miami Beach hotel room. It was an embarrassing and devastating blow to Gillum, a long-serving former city commissioner and mayor who still harbored ambitions of becoming governor one day. A Miami Beach Police Department report says officers were called to a West Avenue hotel around 1 a.m. and found Gillum there with two other men, one of whom was being treated for a possible drug overdose. Gillum was too inebriated to speak with officers, though he was later reported in stable condition and with normal vital signs. Police found plastic baggies of suspected crystal meth on the bed and floor of the hotel room, the report says, but Gillum, in a prepared statement issued shortly after news broke, denied using the drug and offered an apology. Quote, "I was in Miami last night for a wedding celebration when first responders were called to assist one of my friends," Gillum said in this written release. "While I had too much to drink, I want to be clear that I have never used methamphetamines. I apologize to the people of Florida for the distraction this has caused our movement. I'm thankful to the incredible Miami Beach EMS team for their efforts. I will spend the next few weeks with my family and appreciate privacy during this time," Gillum added. One of the three men, identified as the complainant, told officers that he arrived at the hotel room around 11 p.m., quote, where he discovered the other man and Andrew Gillum inside the room under the influence of an unknown substance, end quote. He said the other man with Gillum opened the hotel room door before walking to the bed and collapsing in a prone position. He also saw Gillum in the bathroom vomiting. He also said he tried to rouse the other man awake after he began having trouble breathing. After that man collapsed again, the complainant performed chest compressions on him and called police and fire rescue. Officers tried to speak with Gillum but were unsuccessful. Mr. Gillum, this is quotes now, Mr. Gillum was unable to communicate with officers due to his inebriated state, end quote, the report says. But when fire rescue workers went back to the hotel to check on Gillum later, he appeared fine. Quote, fire rescue stated that he was in stable condition and his vitals were normal, end quote, the report says. Quote, Mr. Gillum left the hotel room and returned to his residence without incident. The police report says first responders found suspected drugs at the scene. Quote, inside of the hotel room, officers observed in plain sight 3 small clear plastic baggies containing suspected crystal meth on both the bed and the floor. The report says the 3 small baggies of suspected narcotics were impounded at the Miami Beach Police Station Property and Evidence Unit for Destruction, end quote. Ernesto Rodriguez, a spokesman for Miami Beach PD, provided a copy of the report to the Tallahassee Democrat, part of the USA Today network. No arrests were made. Quote, at this time, the incident is not being investigated as a criminal matter, Rodriguez said. Gillum did not answer a phone call. Some of his top advisors and spokespeople did not respond to texts or phone calls before the news broke. Married with 3 children, Gillum has maintained a high profile since his bitter loss 2 years ago to Republican Ron DeSantis. After capturing the national spotlight during the campaign, he launched an ambitious effort to register voters ahead of this year's election. He is a frequent face on CNN and has appeared as a panelist during recent Democratic primary coverage. However, Gillum is no stranger to scandal. His gubernatorial campaign began to falter late in the campaign after revelations surfaced about his interactions with lobbyists and undercover FBI agents during out-of-town trips. The case was first reported on Twitter by Candace Owens, a conservative commentator and author. Miami PD provided a copy of the police report, though Gillum's address, date of birth, and other information was redacted. An unredacted copy was tweeted by Peter Schorsch of Florida Politics that included Gillum's address and date of birth. That information matched information at the Leon County Supervisor of Elections and Property Appraisers offices. Okay guys, so I've read that USA Today article in its entirety, and of course there are a number of other articles out about this story. Now, when I first heard this story, I was definitely shocked. And here's the thing, guys. I am not someone who is a person that considers themselves someone who follows politics. I see what I see in news headlines or maybe internet news stories and different things of that nature. But I am not a party to either Democratic, Republican, or independent. I don't even consider myself an independent, which I assume an independent is someone who doesn't consider themselves a Democrat or a Republican. I do vote, but I'm just not of any of these parties. And the reason I won't even say the reason, but I will definitely say this story, even though, like I said, it was a little bit surprising to me and it saddened me. This is nothing new. This is not something that is one party deals with more than another, because if I can find some of these stories, I'll actually put it in the description box and even, in the podcast notes for iTunes. But I've seen headline news stories that were never reported on multiple news outlets regarding people who were Republicans and who were Democrats who were found to have been in compromising situations and positions where it involves someone who was involved with, we'll just put it like this. It was a man who was married to a woman who was busted with another man. And that has happened on the sides of Democrats, and it has happened on the sides of Republicans. So there's no one side that is more pious or holy or whatever than another, because there are hypocrites on all sides, okay? So that's one of the reasons why I don't consider myself a party person, because you can't find either side without faults. There are faults on every side. But this podcast is not about, politics, Republicans or Democrats. This is just about this story. And what I wanted to just get your, opinion on, guys, is regarding Andrew Gillum. And was this a marriage, or was it an arrangement? And, I bring that up because, like I just said, I've seen headline stories that may not have made it to headline news, or may not have made it to a number of different news outlets, but I've definitely seen stories over the years regarding senators or congressmen or whatever, whether it's on a federal level or state level, where someone was busted, whether it was in their office or in a hotel room or something along those lines, where it was a man with another man, and this man, who is representing or serving their constituents, so to speak, was married with children, and they were living a double life. I just feel that, unfortunately, there are a lot of people that are living double lives because they don't feel like they are able to be free in who they truly want to be, or who they truly feel like they are, or who they truly feel they want to be. This is not a judgment call on that, because that's not for me to judge. It's none of my freaking business. And yeah, maybe this story isn't any of my business either, but I'm just giving my commentary on it because it is something that was out there in the news, and I just have my feelings about it. Now, he was busted in a hotel room. Now, I don't know, with this story at least that I read from the USA Today article, it didn't say what was the trigger, what was the factor that got the Miami Police Department to even be involved with coming to the hotel room. There's nothing that I have read in this article that states, what was it? I don't know if there were patrons in the hotel that were, complaining about noise to the front desk, and the front desk felt like they needed to get the Miami Beach Police Department involved because they didn't feel like they could get the situation under control. I'm not really sure exactly what triggered the Miami Beach, Police Department to come there. But with this story, it says that he was found to be so inebriated that they couldn't even really speak with him. He was vomiting in, a toilet in the bathroom in the hotel room. It says they were called to the hotel around 1 a.m. and he was there with two other men, one of whom was being treated for a possible drug overdose. Okay, in his statement, at least the statement that was released, because I don't know, it is possible now, I'm not saying that it happened, but it is possible that he gave more words. He had a longer statement, but they just cut it short and they only, shared a portion of what he stated. But what, this article shows in his statement, it didn't say anything about him, the reason he was in a hotel room with two other men around 1 a.m. He stated in this quote, in this statement, that he's never used methamphetamine. But he didn't say anything about he has not been in a sexual relationship with other men, and he is happily married, and these were just two of his, old college or high school or whatever buddies, and they decided to have a few drinks at the bar and decided to come up to, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure it out. And just based on what I am seeing, he doesn't seem to be truthful. He doesn't seem to share, and of course, like I said, it's really none of our business, but because this is a public story, then of course we have the, the opportunity to read the article, and then we, who are human beings, are going to share our opinions based on what we see and what we hear and what was shared. And he didn't say anything about him not being in, let's say, extracurricular activities outside of his marriage with other men. He just said he's never used methamphetamine. So I don't know. I'm just of the thought process that maybe if he was in a hotel bar or a hotel restaurant or whatever, and he was found with two other men and, just hanging out at the hotel bar, then of course people can assume things, and people are going to share their opinions and make judgments based on that. Well, what was he doing at a hotel bar with two other men at 1 a.m. when he's a married man? Now, something like that, it can be a little bit far-fetched where it involves someone sharing their opinion about what they see. But for him to be in a hotel room with two other men, and one of the men said that the other guy was, on the bed being treated for a possible drug overdose. Even though Gillum said that he has never used methamphetamine, he clearly was hanging around people that he knew was using it. And being someone that just believes in the word of God, it's like one of the scriptures, it says, shun the very appearance of evil. And I'm not saying that to say that you can't have family or friends that are struggling or suffering with substance abuse issues and you just shun them. But what I'm saying is, what that means is that when people see things, they're going to make judgments based on what they see. And if he was hanging out with people that had this stuff, he had to have known that they had it, in this situation at least. I'm not saying that he, if he was in a car with someone and they got pulled over and then they did a search, and the persons that he was in the car with, they were found to have plastic baggies in their pockets of methamphetamine. That is a situation where he could possibly not know that they had that. But he was in a hotel room with these people. They found him at least at 1 a.m. on this day. So he was definitely with them for a lot longer than that. And I don't really know how you end up in a hotel room with two other men. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And for him to be a married man with 3 children, and he said that he was there for a wedding, I don't know. It just sounds extremely suspect. And again, guys, I'm not talking about sexual preferences, because if he is on what we call the proverbial down low and he was living an alternative lifestyle, it is possible that the wife that he has knew the type of life that he was living. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because there have been so many stories that have come out regarding men who are either in politics or maybe in the churches, where they have some sort of title, some sort of prestige. And these women who are hanging on, they may act as if they're shocked, but I don't believe that they necessarily are shocked. I do believe that they have to have known at least something. And if they didn't know 100%, they had a feeling, they had a gut feeling about it. Because I do believe that God has given not just women, a foresight, but, you always hear about women's intuition. I do believe that women can sense when something isn't right. And I'm not saying that she knew her husband was living an alternative lifestyle 100%, but I do believe that she may have thought that there was some things that were going on and she just wasn't 100% sure about it. But because of the title, because he was a mayor of Tallahassee, he ran for governor, he had that seat at the table with CNN where he was able to come on and contribute and share his thoughts and opinions on things where it involved things that were going on in the news of politics, and CNN would call on him to be an expert contributor. I do believe that she possibly was, aware of some things that was not on the up and up with regards to him being a faithful husband, whether it was him, being unfaithful with women or men. That's not my point in the story. My point is just regarding him living a lifestyle that was not what she was portraying, we shall say, to the, to the public. And so now with the things that are going on, he issued this statement about him going into rehab, things like that, which I applaud. I applaud when someone figures out that they have an issue or they have, some problems where they will acknowledge that they need to go into rehab. But unfortunately, it's a shame when it has to happen after some public spectacle or some very embarrassing moments, such as this. Now, he stated, after conversation with my family and deep reflection, I have made the decision to seek help, guidance, and enter a rehabilitation facility at this time. Gillum, a Democrat who lost to now Governor Ron DeSantis in 2018, revealed that since that race, he fell into a deep depression that has led to alcohol abuse. Without addressing the events, he said, "This has been a wake-up call for me." And it's just sad. It's like, why does it take something so public to, have to be the wake-up call? I'm not judging anyone that goes through depression, because I've dealt with it. I've dealt with it in life. I've dealt with it in situations regarding, situations that have happened in my life beyond my control, and I acknowledged it. I won't say that this situation is 100% sincere, because I do believe that, some of it was PR, and I get it. When you have a public platform such as that, you're going to have the PR that comes along with that, and the Olivia Popes and the fixers and, those people that come along with that territory because they're trying to save face. I don't know if this is something that he can come back from with regard to, coming out of it and being better than what he was before. Anything is possible in this crazy world that we live in, because, look at Marion Barry. He was found smoking crack in a hotel room, and he was elected again after that. Oh my God. He was elected again after that. And even thinking back on that, I was much younger back in the day when that happened, but I just remember the A Living Color television show where they made fun of it, and it was funny to me. Come on, it was funny. But it was a real situation that happened, but people, they entrusted him enough where they felt like he deserved another chance and another opportunity, and they elected him, I believe, to a higher office than what he had before. I could be wrong, but my point is, it did not stop him. He was able to keep going from it. So it is possible that Andrew Gillum could come out of this situation, but I don't know if this marriage was, a marriage where he just went into a state of depression and had this, downward spiral of alcohol abuse and getting into the wrong crowd and making some bad decisions where it involved the people that he chose to be in company with, or if this was just an arrangement where he saw himself going higher and going up in the political stages, and he needed to have that face of the husband and the father. That's just one of those things that in the political arena, it kind of boils down to. Now, in the state where I'm from, South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, who was a senator from South Carolina, who's been in office for many, many years, he's one of the few people that I know of that has been in office and not being married or even in a relationship with anyone else that we know of. And no one has questioned his sexuality. But people like Cory Booker, who people have alleged, not me, I don't really know, I don't really care either way, to be honest with you, but people have alleged that when he decided to run for office, that's when he decided that he needed to have a significant other who was of the opposite sex. So that's when he came out that he was in a relationship with Rosario Dawson, who is an actress. But not too long before or after he rescinded his run for president of the United States was when Rosario Dawson came out and said that she is, living an alternative lifestyle, shall we say. And so people started to question, okay, well, how long has that been? Was that before, he dropped his bid for president or after. Because, you know, there are people that have their opinions of whether Cory Booker was a heterosexual man or a homosexual man. Those are just some of the things that were out there. Again, like I said, I could care less either way because he was one that I never really paid attention to much anyway, but that's whatever. So with Andrew Gillum, I am again not wishing any harm on him or his wife or children. I definitely do feel sorry for his children. I don't know how old his children are, but that is something that is extremely embarrassing. And yeah, it is definitely embarrassing for him and his wife as well. But I'm just wondering. I'm not sure. And that's where I want to know what you guys think about it and what your opinions are. Do you feel that this was actually a marriage or was it an arrangement? Because you just see it so much, especially in the political arena and definitely a lot in churches where the woman is okay with just kind of being that arm figure. I won't say arm candy, but that arm figure where it is perceived that this is a great relationship, a great marriage, and this is someone that the people can support, can put their support behind, that they can believe in, that they can entrust to represent them in wherever they would be representing them, and just be okay with that. And it's sad because I see a whole lot of it more in churches because a lot more of the preachers and the pastors tend to get exposed than people who are in politics. It does happen in politics, but with the preachers, you see a whole lot more stories about preachers and pastors who are caught with other men and they are married with children, and then you wonder, like, was this a real marriage or was it an arrangement? And that is the reason why I'm asking that about this story. Was it a real marriage or was it an arrangement? Again, I don't know. I'm just asking the question and just sharing my opinion based on what I've seen and being beautifully honest about it, because when I saw the picture of Andrew Gillum and one of the guys on a boat, it just looked very suspect. And I don't know about any of you women out there who are married or in a relationship with, another man. And if you saw your husband or your boyfriend or whatever, or maybe even your brother who's married to a woman, and you saw them in on a picture on a boat with another man, the way that those two look, it just didn't look right. And I just don't know. And so it saddened me. I don't know if he's being honest about him not ever using methamphetamines, but he was really adamant about that quote. But sometimes when people are really adamant about one thing, when there are other factors involved and they don't address the other things, then it's almost like they're trying to draw your attention away from the other factors involved in the story because they just want you to focus on what they know that they never did. And so it is possible that he never used the meth. I don't know. I will say this one thing though. He's definitely lucky, because the thing that we're reading about is that he was released. Not even that he was released, but he was never even locked up. He was never cuffed. He was never arrested. The cops just saw him in the state and they reported it in the police report, but nothing was ever done to him criminally at this point. I don't know if they're still investigating and that there's still a possibility of that happening. I don't know. But again, I will say that he's exceptionally lucky because he is not someone that can say that he was booked on charges of whatever, they wanted to charge him with. So now that they're asking for, privacy, as he's made the decision to enter rehab and saying he will forego all public roles for the foreseeable future, I'm just like, yeah, get yourself together. Never want anyone to struggle with any alcohol abuse, drug abuse, any other addictions, because addictions can be exceptionally crazy and they can take over somebody's life, and somebody who is a really great person can be destroyed by the choices that they make. And that's why we have to be so careful about the decisions that we make, whether it involves just the people that we choose to associate ourselves with, the things that we choose to imbibe in and enjoy for the sake of stress relief or whatever. We just have to be so careful about those things because it is a very fine line. You know, you could be just someone who just enjoys to have wine, and then you wind up drinking a whole bottle or two of wine every single day. That's a problem. Having a glass of wine a day, no, not so much. But you just have to be very careful because it's all about feelings. And with him saying that he found himself in a state of depression, I can understand that. I can understand, especially if he was on such a huge and public profile and he thought that things were going to go his way and then it didn't. That's hard. When you lose, especially on a large scale, I don't care what anybody tells you, that is a hard thing to deal with. It is not an easy thing to deal with. And you really have to seek solace in counseling and therapy. I'm a true and firm believer in God and seeking the word for wisdom and how to operate and guide you in your life, because things like drugs and alcohol, they're just going to lead you down the wrong path. You may feel good for a little moment, but it is not going to fulfill you, and you're always going to be chasing after that feeling. And faith has no feelings. Faith is a knowing, and you have to know that you are capable of coming out of a low state. But if you're just searching for a feeling, then you're going to continue to indulge in things that are not going to be very good for you, which is clearly what he did, unfortunately. I don't know if he was so much into the church. He strikes me as somebody who may have been, but it was probably more of a ritual thing versus a relationship thing, and that can be very harmful when you don't know the difference. So I can never go to a church building but just get the word and, get it taught to me, and I could be great, versus people who are just into the rituals of going to the building and going through the rules and regulations of the different, roles that people do, in these buildings. And that clearly doesn't do many people very good. So it's a very sad situation, but I don't know, again, if this is just an arrangement or is it an actual marriage. I hope that it is an actual marriage. I don't know if he's telling the truth. You guys can let me know how you feel about it in the comment section, but he just doesn't strike me as being, 100% truthful in this situation. And I can understand that, because if you're embarrassed, of course you don't want to share that, look, I am suffering with, drug issues. I believe that if you have a choice, A or B, A is alcohol abuse, B is meth and drug abuse. More people would be prone to share that they're dealing with alcohol issues versus using meth, because there's just nothing good associated with either. But if you are to compare the two, then having an alcohol addiction versus having a methamphetamine addiction could probably be seen as, better than the alternative, which is B, being addicted to meth or even just using it. So yeah, I don't really know, especially since he's a much older man. You don't really hear about a lot of older men who are people who have been drinking for years. Not saying drinking is a problem, but just drinking, throwing up in toilets. That's something you usually hear about with regards to college students or younger kids who are just like binge drinking. And I don't really see that was something that he was doing. Again, I could be wrong. There could be more stories that are coming out about this in the foreseeable near future. We shall see. I don't know if they did a breathalyzer on him or if they did a drug test on him and they just chose, for the sake of giving him some privacy, not to share that information. But I do not believe that he was being 100% truthful in that situation. So those are just my thoughts. Again, my opinions. I could be wrong, but it's just my viewpoint on it. I want to know what you guys think about it. Do you feel that Andrew Gillum has an actual marriage, or does he have a relationship? How do you feel about his wife? Do you feel sorry for her, or do you feel that she actually knew that he was living an alternative lifestyle, or feels that he is living an alternative lifestyle? Do you feel that he's living an alternative lifestyle? He's just not being truthful for the sake of saving some sort of face, because let's face it, he was already just embarrassed in this entire situation. Let's just be real about it. So those are just my thoughts and views on this situation, guys. I appreciate you listening to this episode of the Being Beautifully Honest podcast. If you like this episode, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe and share it with someone that you feel would enjoy this episode. And again, guys, this is the Minister of Beauty, here to share the Bible. That's business, inspiration, beauty, life, and enjoyment. So until the next episode, I hope you all have an amazingly blessed and beautiful day.